Joined now by Zach Abolverdi of Gators Online, and it has been a newsy weekend in Gainesville, and not in all the good ways. It's one of those you hate to see it kind of preseason camp situations where you got an injury before anybody plays a game, and in this case, it's Montrell Johnson, Florida's starting running back.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see this news. They haven't even really started tackling yet like that. And this guy that came back for his senior season has led Florida in rushing the past 2 years, is now going to miss fall camp. Now, the bright side is that it's not a major injury, and he's going to be able to play for the Gators this season and maybe early on in the season. But he's going to miss fall camp, at least for the staff. Now they go into these next set of practices knowing they got to figure out what they have at the running back spot behind him.
Well, and that's the interesting thing. So it's a knee. He had an arthroscopic operation to clean it up. So they're not expecting to lose him first season, but they don't exactly know whether they're going to have him for the Miami game. So if, let's say, Montrell can't go in the Miami game, who would you suspect winds up getting those reps in the Miami game?
Well, I think the next guy up is Treon Webb. You know, he's the true freshman that played last year as a freshman, now back as a sophomore, a guy that was already expected to have a larger role this season because of the departure of Trevor Etienne to Georgia. Now I think that they go through fall camp now. He's going to be the guy going through the starting reps with the first team offense. Now, will they get some other guys in there to get some experience? Yes, including the true freshman. But honestly, I think one guy that's going to be in that rotation, Andy, that a lot of people maybe aren't talking about or don't expect is Jacoby Jackson, the JUCO transfer who redshirted last year, was a guy that I wasn't really expecting much from in the spring and ended up surprising the staff. I think surprising a lot of us with how productive he was in the scrimmages and then in the spring game. So he might be, second or third in that rotation. But the guy next up is Treon Webb out of Duval.
Well, so the people who watch the spring game, because everybody's going to ask this, because Jaden Ball had a big spring game, the freshman. What would he have to do to get on the field at this point? Is it a pass pro thing for those young guys?
Yeah, and I think it's obviously learning the playbook. I think for him, getting the weight that he needs to be at, that's something that he's been working on. Not that it's an issue or anything, but just to be consistently where he wants to be. But with any true freshman or young guy at that position, to ask them to pass protect, to pick up all the different responsibilities that come with pass protection, to know the playbook, that's a lot to put on a young guy's plate. Now, the good thing for Jaden Baugh, as well as KD Daniels, is both of those guys enrolled early. But Jaden Baugh is a guy who is going to play as a freshman and make an impact. I mean, he's going to be probably that first guy off the bench. It's just, how much can they put on his plate that first game against Miami if Montrell Johnson can't play? I think because of Treon Webb having a year under his belt, kind of getting the starting reps, at least I expect in fall camp, he's going to be the guy that they key in on. But as the season goes on, you're going to see number 13 carry the ball and carry the ball more often.
So another true freshman in the offense that I'm curious about, because Billy Napier addressed this at SEC Media Days, and it was interesting hearing him talk about DJ Lagway, because obviously he's getting tons of questions. This was the star signee in last year's class. No one is expecting DJ Lagway to start over Graham Mertz. Everybody, knows that Graham Mertz is QB1 at Florida. But the way Billy Napier described that situation and wanting to make sure that DJ Lagway does get some snaps and you have your backup ready, it almost sounded a little like the Chris Leak, Tim Tebow dynamic back in 2006, where there was definitely a role for the freshman when he got in there.
Yeah. There's going to be a role. I think one thing that we got to be honest about, Andy, which is different now in this day and age in the NIL era, is just the amount of money that is being paid to DJ Lagway. Just to be honest with you, that much that he's been brought here for, to have him sit on the bench, being the type of weapon that he is, it doesn't do Florida any good. And I think that just for that reason alone, as well as for his future development, setting the Gators up for success in 2025, as well as having him making an impact this season, I think there's so many reasons why you want to play DJ Lagway. Here's another reason why. When recruits come to the Swamp and see all these games that they got on their slate, they want to meet with DJ Lagway. And that's no disrespect to Graham Mertz, but DJ Lagway is going to be the guy that they would be playing with.
Graham Mertz will be there.
Yeah. So there's so many reasons why you want to get DJ in the game. For his experience, for the amount of money that you're paying him. Fans want to see him. Recruits want to see him. And most importantly, number one on that list, if he can make the Gators better and make an impact, they're going to put him in the game. And I think they will. They've got packages planned for him. It's going to be something that keeps defensive coordinators on their toes. It's not going to do. And one thing that won't be like the Tebow dynamic is it's not like he's just going to come in there and run. At least when Tebow was a true freshman, you knew what he was going to do. You don't know.
Until they threw it with him in the national title game, and Ohio State is like, what? What is this sorcery?
In the jump pass, that was, not a pretty jump pass.
Tate Casey caught it.
He did. Shout out to Tate. But DJ is going to throw a lot of pretty balls, and he's a dual threat guy that is going to be something that Graham can't provide. So all those reasons I just went into is why you're going to see him on the field.
It's interesting because I hadn't thought about it this way, but it kind of reminds me of before the NFL instituted the rookie salary scale. Because, now if you pick a quarterback, even in the, early first round, there are still players on your team that make more than that quarterback. But back in the day, if you picked a quarterback number one, like he walked in the building as the highest paid player on the team and you had no choice. Like if you sat him, it was just constant questions.
Of course.
And you're right, because that's DJ Lagway on this team.
100%. Now, are there rookie quarterbacks that get drafted top 5 and they're getting paid a lot of money and don't play their first year? Yes.
Patrick Mahomes.
The dynamic is a little bit different now, but I just, again, there's so much riding on DJ Lagway. He is the most hype recruit for Florida since Tim Tebow, and you're going to see him on the field. Now, again, if he's not earning it and he's not somebody that can make a difference, they're not just going to throw him out there and they're not going to force it, because every time you take him off, you put him in, you're taking Graham Mertz off the field. So it's got to make sense, but I think it will for Florida and for DJ.
So you and Nick Del Toro have been covering this, for the past couple of weeks. What positions are still kind of up for grabs in preseason camp?
Whew, man, that's a good question because they actually have a lot. I think that if you go to, let's start on defense because that's the most important side of the ball. I think at Mike linebacker, where you lost Scooby Williams, you got Pup Howard and Derek Wingo that are going to be competing.
So they could go from a Scooby to a Pup, which is just,
I love it.
Perfect.
That's perfect. I mean, I think it's destined.
Scrappy would be even better.
and that's another guy that they brought in from the portal that they need help tackling, Andy. And Pup Howard, I've said this stat before, which I think is a big deal. He led South Carolina in tackling as a true freshman per PFF, and he played in all 13 games. So it wasn't like these were just a few snaps that got him an 88 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. So he's a guy that should make a difference. But again, he's still going to beat out a guy in Derek Wingo who's been there a long time, knows that defense. I think along the defensive line, that F spot is really salty. That's going to be a 4-man rotation between Justice Boone, Tyreek Sapp, LJ McCray, and Cameron James. All 4 of those guys are going to play. I think Boone or Sapp will start, but like how that rotation looks and who plays on what downs and in what packages, that could change over the course of camp and over the course of the season. I think at end with Joey Slackman and Caleb Banks, that's a really stiff competition. And then you move over to the offense, Andy, and on that right side of the line, both of those spots to me are up for grabs. Like Damian George is the likely most candidate to start at right guard, who moved there in the spring from right tackle. But they've now got Cam Waits back at right guard, repping there, seeing if he can give him some competition, because Damian George basically just got that spot without anybody challenging him in the spring. So now you got Waits there to kind of compete with him. And then at right tackle, where I think everybody just assumed that Brennan Crenshaw-Dixon, the transfer from San Diego State, would win that job, he's getting some competition from Caden Jones, a guy who's never played a college game and redshirted last year, but he's made that much progress at the offensive tackle position. I mean, the guy looks impressive when you see him in person. So I don't think anybody saw that coming, but that's a heated battle from what I've been told.
Well, and also possible functional depth on the offensive line for Florida, which is not something they've had in a while. Like that's been the thing. Like they've had their starting five, and if somebody went down, it was bad news. It might be a situation where they actually could withstand some bumps and bruises along the way.
No doubt. And one thing we also saw this week is Rod Kearney, their backup center, is getting cross-trained at guard. And that's something that they've done in the past. Didn't know if they would continue to do it because of Waits being there, because of Bryce Lovett's progress at guard. He's another guy that they really like. But now they also got Rod Kearney repping there because you added Jason Zandamela, the USC transfer, and now he's playing center. So now you got more depth there. I mean, they're in a much better spot. I mean, over at left tackle, you got Devin Manuel with Austin Barber. So they're just they got more bodies. And if somebody's not getting the job done, they don't have to just sit there and eat it anymore. They can put somebody else in the game.
Well, that's something that they've needed for quite a while in that position group, especially. Another position group that was an issue last year, the secondary. And you had a story at Gators Online this week about Jason Marshall, who had a great freshman sophomore year.
Yeah, people
project him as a potential first-round draft pick, leaving early, and he just has a bad junior year. And so he's back. You said he seems completely different now than last year. And then, tell me a little bit about some of the guys they brought in at safety to kind of help out with that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think with Jason, I've covered that guy since he was a recruit. I remember him coming in as a freshman. He's done media availability every year at Florida. He's been a regular. It's not like he doesn't like doing media. Something was different about him this past week when he took the podium. The guy was just exuding confidence. He was telling great stories on the mic, like he was smiling. I mean, he was different, and you could just tell that something was different about him. And he said during his presser that he's got his confidence back. And that he lost it last year. He couldn't really pinpoint when, but he was like, it's obvious. You could see it on tape. And, I think early on in the year, he had some things just not go his way and some plays that he gave up. I still remember the one against Utah, the first play of the game, and the guy got tripped. Yeah. It was just like bad luck that he, gets tripped and can't make a touchdown saving tackle. And then he had like 3 or 4 more plays like that. He did close out the season on a strong note against FSU. Against FSU, he had a great game. And it was like, that's the guy that everybody expected as a junior. So now he comes back. I think one thing that he had to worry about, which I didn't really consider until I've seen the guys that they brought in at safety, is he knew last year if he gave up a busted coverage or let a guy get behind him, it could go for 6. Because Florida had 2 true freshman safeties back there starting, and that was just where they were at as a secondary. Now one of those guys, Jordan Castell, is back as a sophomore, much more experience. He earned, ESPN All-American honors last year, led the team in tackles. But now you got Asa Turner that is probably going to start next to him from Washington. Florida's so lucky to have this guy on the roster, Andy. He should be out of eligibility, but only played in 4 regular season games, didn't play toward the whole back half of the regular season, and then played in the conference title game and in both college football playoff games for Washington. Those 3 didn't count against his eligibility.
Yeah. So
he was able to go redshirt last year, have a redshirt year, transfer to Florida, and now he's starting as a 6-year senior. And he's making a huge difference. I mean, his tackle grade last year at Washington was 72, I think, something in that range, which is way higher than every other Florida safety not named Jordan Castell.
And in one of those only in 2024 situations, you'll have Asa Turner, who started the national championship game for Washington in the secondary, playing against Mish Powell, who's at Miami now, who started in the secondary for Washington in the national title game. So
that's wild.
Yeah, it is crazy. One more thing I want to talk to you about, because I saw this last week. I saw it, buzzing on the internet after the press conference. Billy Napier saying better people make better football players. And obviously he got made fun of a lot for that.
Oh, yeah.
And it goes back. I've been saying this all offseason. I don't know how you feel about this, Zach. Like, there's nothing Billy Napier can say at this point. Like, he just has to win games, because what he said, the better people make better football player, is a Nick Sabanism through and through. Saban didn't say it quite that way, but all the time he would say something to the tune of, like, if you take care of all of the little things in your life or all the things in your life, you tend to be a better football player. Like, that's the meaning behind that statement. But it's one of those things where, like, if they win let's say they have a good season, they win like 7-8 games, it's a Nick Sabanism. If they win 3 or 4 games, that's his champions of life right there.
Yeah. It's you give folks ammunition with stuff like that, given where he's at right now with public perception. It's unfortunate because that came from a really, really great comment from Billy and story that he told about basically what was the biggest compliment that he could give his team right now, which is what everybody that's not associated with the football program is saying about his players. The academic tutors, the trainers, the janitors, the cleaning staff, all these people that interact with them that say, hey, this locker room has been spotless and has never looked like this since this building opened. These players are engaging with us like never before and showing up on time. And he just gave this great description of all the stuff that they've done this offseason that kind of changed themselves. And right there at the end threw in that quote that he loves and lives by. And it just like took away from what was really a great comment. But that's where he's at right now. And that's where Florida's at. And people just pounce on that stuff. But look, he says that he thinks that his team is going to prove him right in that. So if they do, then that comment will hold true.
Well, we will find out very soon. Miami, Florida,
Yes.
Pitchforks and Torches game may or may not include Montrell Johnson. We'll find out. But Zach, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.